Sportify.online is a fantasy football application that presents data taken from the Yahoo and Fantasy Data APIs and is presented to the user in a graphical and more visual representation, which is contrary to what traditional sites such as Yahoo, ESPN, or NFL.com have to offer to the user. When the user lands on the landing page, they are shown to the statistics portion of the application, in which a chart.js I'm going to put it on the emails that I send out to people.
Just write it down and then read off of it.
No, I should be able to do this.
It'll save you a lot of time.
I think you're right, but
But I'm going to do 7. I can do 1 and do 7.
Sportify is a fantasy football Sportify is a fantasy football data visualization application in which the Yahoo and Fantasy Data API are used to aggregate all the players available in the NFL and present to the user a You're totally right. Okay. Sportify is a fantasy football data application in which the Yahoo and Fantasy Data API are aggregated and presented to the user in a more graphical and visualized presentation using technologies such as Chart.js and D3. When the user lands on the landing page, they are shown the top 20 quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends based off of 2015 numbers, and the players are shown and pitted against each other based off of a Chart.js chart visualization. If in particular the user is interested in Cam Newton, what they can do is they can click on Cam Newton's bar chart, and you'll get access to Cameron Newton's Twitter feed via the Twitter API, and you can keep up with all the personal, up-to-date tweets that Cam Newton will have. On top of that, when the user wants to navigate to a different section of the website, they can go to the players table, which is essentially the same presentation that Yahoo, ESPN, and all the other major statistical websites will offer, and it'll give them a breakdown of all their statistics throughout the year. If they want to make a more specified query, the user can do is they can go to Carolina, for example, and check out Cameron Newton, how he did on week 5. So what they would do is they'll input all that, and once the submit button is clicked, there will be a call to the Postgres database through the SQLized ORM, and that request will return all of the Carolina quarterbacks from week 5 and all their individual statistics. So when that is loaded, so when the user navigates to the player application, when the user navigates to the player site, So when the user navigates to the player component of the application, they can see a call to the database is made, and it will return the top 25 players from last year's 2015 fantasy numbers. If the user is more interested in a player such as Cam Newton, they can click on the name, and a breakdown of Cam Newton's week by week numbers will be shown, as well as a radar chart that is used via D3.js to get a breakdown of how he does compared to the rest of the league. Along with that, they'll also have access to the tweets for that individual player so that they can keep up to date with all of their personals. If the user is more interested in how Arizona's wide receivers are doing, because they have a personal uh, preference to Arizona, they can check out the 2015 season for all their wide receivers, and you'll see a breakdown of Larry Fitzgerald, John Smokey Brown, Michael Floyd, J.G. Nelson, and Jaron Brown. And they could see how they were doing for the 2015 season, and a provided breakdown will also be shown as well. The game schedule for the NFL is also provided. This is also done using a call to the API. So when the user navigates to the schedule components, they can get a week by week breakdown of the 2016 schedule. At the first initial landing page, so when the user navigates to the schedule components, a call to the API will be made for the current week, and the current week's schedule will be shown with each team getting an individual styling assessed. So when the user navigates to the schedule component for Sportify, a call to the API will be made. Okay. So when the user navigates to the schedule components, a Axios request will be made out to the database from the client, and the current week's schedule will be will be sent back through the database from the database to the client, and the client will then render the upcoming game schedule for that week. Each team will be applied an individual class component, individual class that will apply these specified colors for each team, and it's a really cool feature because it gives the look and feel of the actual NFL team's colors. If the user would like to see how week 6 is doing, they can navigate there. Same process will be made. An Axios request will be sent from the client to the database, and the database will send back the week 6 schedules. Now, any fantasy data application wouldn't be complete without a way to integrate your current fantasy football team into the application. So the user is able to click on the Yahoo symbol, and a Yahoo OAuth authentication strategy has been used to allow the user to integrate their current teams into the application. So for example, I'm not doing too well in this league, but I'm going to go ahead and check out my league, and it looks like I'm losing a decent amount this week, but hopefully I do a little better there. And once integrated, they can check out their individual teams. by going to find My Fantasy Teams and go ahead and click there, and my team will show up with all the current players on the roster. So the user can track their teams and so the user can go ahead and track their teams, and I can go ahead and see how Julio Jones is doing. So the user can go ahead and track their teams. I can go ahead and see how Julio Jones is doing. It looks like he had a pretty good week, and then I can go back. Lastly, one of the very interesting things that Sportify has to offer that most other lastly, one of the things that Sportify has to offer that most other applications don't offer So once I'm done checking out my players, maybe I want to make a change to my fantasy lineup. What One thing that Sportify has to offer that most other like applications such as ESPN and Yahoo don't offer is a do-it-yourself statistics. And that is about it for the components. Now, obviously, there is a lot more to work on, and future iterations will be made. But this is the basic breakdown of Sportify.online. I'm going to take you to my GitHub where you can see a breakdown of the architecture that was used for the application. So the web client was used with React, Redux, React Router, and D3, as well as Chart.js for that. The web server was written in Node and Express. So that about sums it up for Sportify.online. There will be future iterations and features to be made, but so that about sums it up for Sportify.online. Let me go ahead and give you a breakdown of the high-level architecture. Uh, Now, like every full-stack application, the web client was made using React, Redux, React Router, D3, and Chart.js. The web server was done in Node and Express. This deployment was done through AWS and was Dockerized as well. And the web server also made API calls out to external APIs such as Twitter, Yahoo, and Fantasy Data. Once the external calls were made, the data was stored in the Postgres database and was updated through two workers. One interesting problem that I ran into while doing this application was the Twitter handles for each of the players were not available. And in order to combat that, I went ahead and scraped Google's first line given a specific query, such as Julio Jones' Twitter handle. And usually, most of the case, the first line in Google was a link to Julio Jones' Twitter API. So I was able to store that into the Postgres database so that whenever the web server made any requests for those Twitter handles, they were readily available. And on the left side, you also have the Fantasy Data API with a Python worker. One of the main issues and reasons why both Yahoo and Fantasy Data API were used was the Yahoo API only allows you to request for the information of one player at a time. And in order to find a way around that and save some dev time, uh, the Fantasy Data API was used to get the Yahoo IDs, and a cron job was created so that all 1,000+ players can be requested from Yahoo using the Fantasy Data Yahoo IDs. This was again stored as a microservice into its own database, and the original database was updated via a worker and made readily available for any server requests. And that about sums up the architecture for Fantasy Data. And I hope you have enjoyed this walkthrough, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.